Have you ever wondered about the significance of Cornelius the centurion in Acts 10? Well, let's dive in and explore this intriguing character together. Cornelius is introduced to us in the New Testament as a centurion, a Greek term centurion, which signifies a commanding officer in the Roman army, leading a century, a unit of approximately 80 to 100 soldiers. This title alone signifies Cornelius's significant standing within the Roman military structure. In addition, the scripture makes mention of Cornelius's association with the Italian cohort. The Greek word for cohort, spera, refers to a Roman military unit consisting of multiple centuries, usually under the command of a military tribune. This unit, approximately 600 warriors, was part of the broader Roman army, and Cornelius's association with it provides us with a clearer picture of his military background. This mention of the Italian cohort in Acts 10:1 is not just a random detail. It provides the readers in the first century with a context that would have been familiar to them. Naming his unit was obviously significant to them. It helps us identify Cornelius's background within the narrative. However, it's essential to understand that this does not necessarily imply widespread fame or fear associated with Cornelius. Instead, it gives us a glimpse into his role and standing within the Roman military structure. Cornelius's position as a centurion and his association with the Italian cohort set the stage for the narrative of Acts 10. They provide us with an insight into his role and significance within the broader story, but remember, this is just the beginning. As we explore further into the narrative of Acts 10, we'll see how Cornelius's devotion to righteousness becomes instrumental in conveying a much broader and profound message. As we delve deeper into the narrative, we'll see how Cornelius's role and experiences contribute to a larger divine plan and a transformative message of inclusion and grace. Stay tuned as we continue this journey together. Moving on, we find Peter praying on a rooftop. But why a rooftop? In the ancient world, rooftops served as quiet, private spaces, sanctuaries for reflection and prayer. They were places of solitude where individuals could commune with Yahweh above the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Picture this: Peter, in the heat of the day, around what we would call noon, seeking solace on the rooftop. It's a scene that sets the stage for the profound vision he was about to experience. This wasn't just an ordinary afternoon prayer. This was a divine appointment, a moment of revelation that would challenge his understanding and transform his perspective. A moment that would echo through the centuries and touch the lives of countless believers. And so, in solitude on the rooftop, Peter's momentous vision begins. Peter's dream, filled with unclean animals, puzzled him. Why would he be commanded to eat what was unclean? This perplexity takes us back to the dietary laws embedded in the Most High's scriptures. In books like Leviticus and Deuteronomy, Yahweh clearly distinguished between clean and unclean animals. The clean animals could be eaten, while the unclean ones were considered detestable, something not to be consumed. Now imagine Peter's astonishment when he saw a vision of a sheet descending from heaven, filled with all sorts of unclean animals. And even more surprising, he heard a voice commanding him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." This was a direct contradiction to the dietary laws he had followed all his life. His initial response was firm and rooted in commitment to Yahweh's laws. "By no means, Master, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean," he said, as recorded in Acts 10:14. Yet the voice replied, "What Yahweh has cleansed, do not call common." This exchange happened 3 times, each time leaving Peter even more perplexed. He was stuck in a dilemma, trying to reconcile his ingrained beliefs with this command, the lifelong belief that Yahweh had said he wouldn't alter the words of his lips, Psalm 89:34. This was not a simple matter of food. It was a challenge to his faith, his knowledge of the unchanging Yahweh, and his understanding of Yahweh's laws. But here's the twist. Peter's vision was not about food at all. It was not a call to break dietary laws by a God who had changed his mind. Instead, it was a profound message about Yahweh's plan of salvation, a message that would shatter the walls of tradition and open the doors to a full understanding of God's grace. Peter's refusal demonstrated his faithfulness to Yahweh's laws. Yet since the vision was not about food at all, what was it about? It was a divine revelation, a call to break away from tradition and embrace inclusion, the original plan perverted by man's religion. It was a message that salvation was not limited to a select few, but was available for all, regardless of their ethnicity or background. This was the true essence of Peter's vision of unclean animals. The vision's true meaning was about to be unveiled, a revelation that would challenge long-held traditions. As the narrative of Acts unfolds, we see Peter grappling with the perplexing dream. The sheet descending from heaven filled with all manner of creatures, the voice commanding him to kill and eat. It was all too strange. Yet, as he wrestled with the puzzling vision, a profound understanding began to dawn on him. Peter, who had grown up under the strict dietary laws of the Hebrew scriptures, found himself confronted with a vision that seemed to challenge these very laws. But as he delved deeper into the meaning of the dream, he realized it wasn't about food at all. This wasn't a divine decree to abandon the dietary regulations of Leviticus and Deuteronomy. No, it was a symbolic message with far-reaching implications. By verse 28, he realized the unclean animals on the sheet represented the Gentiles, the non-Jews. The voice telling him to kill and eat, well, it was God's way of saying that no man should be considered unclean or impure based on their nationality or heritage. The vision was a divine revelation, challenging the traditional boundaries that had long separated Jews from Gentiles. This was a turning point for Peter and the early Nazarene community. The dream signaled a profound shift in understanding Yahweh's plan of salvation. It wasn't confined to the Jews alone, it was intended for whosoever will. The Gentiles, whom the Pharisees' oral traditions considered impure and unclean, were also part of Yahweh's plan. They too were invited to partake in his grace and love. Peter's revelation went against the grain of prevalent Jewish tradition. It was a radical message of inclusion, breaking down the walls of division and prejudice. It underscored the fundamental truth that in Yahweh's eyes there is no Jew or Gentile, no clean or unclean. We are all one, when we're united through Yeshua's blood, shed once for all. The dream wasn't about what was on the table, but rather who was invited to it. This revelation was a pivotal moment in the narrative, wasn't it? It was a moment of profound clarity for Peter, a moment that redefined his understanding of Yahweh's grace. It was a moment that shattered the glass ceiling of tradition and dared to imagine a more inclusive interpretation of salvation, one that was prophesied in the law and prophets. For centuries, man-made tradition had been a guiding light for the Jewish people. It had provided a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. It had attempted to set them apart, make them unique, when simply following Yahweh's law, as written, would have been all that was needed to truly be set apart. However, it had also built walls that excluded those who did not fit their elitist mold, walls the Most High never wanted built. And in this moment, Peter was being called to tear down those man-made barriers. Peter's vision wasn't about dietary laws. It wasn't about determining what food was clean or unclean. It was about removing the wall of separation built by the elders. It was about people. It was about inclusion. The unclean animals in the sheet were symbolic, representative of the Gentiles who had been deemed unclean by the traditions of men. But Yahweh was challenging that notion, asserting that no one is beyond the reach of his grace. This revelation led Peter to see that Yahweh's grace extended beyond Jewish tradition. He came to understand that the tradition of excluding Gentiles was not part of Yahweh's law. It was a man-made construct, a barrier erected out of fear and misunderstanding. Peter's vision was a call to inclusion, a call to break with tradition, to embrace an understanding of salvation that was only limited by the choice of those who would hear the gospel of the kingdom. It was a call to recognize that Yahweh's love, his grace, was not limited to a select few, but was available to all who sought him. This was a turning point, a game changer. It was a call to action, a call to change. It was an invitation to break with the oral law, to step into a future where salvation was not a privilege reserved for the few, but a gift freely offered to all who decided to walk as Yeshua walked. And so Acts 10 wasn't about changing dietary laws, but about breaking the unrighteous traditions of the Pharisees and embracing the inclusive nature of salvation. It was about tearing down walls, building bridges, and opening doors. It was about recognizing that the love of Yahweh knows no bounds, that his grace extends to all who choose to believe and do his will. We hope that you choose to answer Yeshua's call to be reborn in him. Have a blessed day.